Time to talk to the Conservatives. Delighted to say that the Shadow Environment Secretary, Victoria Atkins, is here with me. Very good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us. Let's talk about what the government have announced today in terms of trying to prosecute and prevent fly tipping more aggressively. Do you support those changes?
Well, it's a huge problem, and the top 10 worst areas for fly tipping are run by Labour. Indeed, of the 50 worst affected areas, some 72% of those councils are Labour-controlled. And the reason I say this is because, as Conservatives, not only did we bring in drones, we brought in a range of measures, we increased the penalties, but we also brought transparency because we wanted to be able to compare good councils, and we know that Conservative-run councils have a good record on tackling fly tipping compared to other councils, particularly Labour-run councils. But what we've seen today, I'm afraid, is a desperate bid by this government to try and distract from the terrible scenes of rubbish that we've seen piling up on the streets of Birmingham, run, of course, by a Labour council. And what they've announced today, I can summarise as follows. They've announced a new law that has in fact been in power for 35 years. They've announced the use of drones. They have been in use since 2021. We brought in funding to do so. I note that there's no new funding attached to this announcement. And then the third is increasing the sentence of persistent fly tippers to 5 years. We agree with that. In fact, we put it down as an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill a few weeks ago, and astonishingly, the Labour Party, the Labour government, voted against it. So the DEFRA Secretary is proposing a new law that he himself voted against only a few weeks ago.
You mentioned what people care about in their local councils. Does that mean you're expecting big victory in the local elections tomorrow?
Well, we know that fly tipping actually in rural areas is the #1 rural crime that people are concerned about, which is why we did an incredible amount, as I say, during whilst we were in government. But actually, if we look at local level, what is really important tomorrow is that this isn't an opinion poll. This is about our local services, whether it's adult social services, children's specialist educational needs services, bin collections, road maintenance and so on. And what we've seen across the board is that if you want lower council tax and better services, then Conservative councils deliver that. And I look in my own area of Lincolnshire County Council. They've done some great years at work over the years, and they are determined to continue with that, particularly in social services. I'm very much hoping that we will be able to continue that hard work.
I guess hope is different from confidence. I mean, Kemi Badenoch gave an interview yesterday to our Beth Rigby, and a gist of a big part of it was to say it's not going to take decades to turn things around for the Conservative Party, but that it will take a long time. I think that the hint there quite clearly was expecting not fantastic results tomorrow. How much time should you, as a shadow cabinet, but the party as a whole, give her to turn things around? Months? Years?
I think actually, so for tomorrow, our focus is on helping every single one of our brilliant Conservative candidates who are out, on the doorsteps today and have been for months, speaking to people, delivering leaflets, showing what we can do for them in their local communities. On the national picture, Kemi has, we had a very bad, election result last summer. We fully acknowledge that. And Kemi's always been completely straight about how this is going to take time. We as a party are completely united in her hard work to listen to the public, to acknowledge, that we got some things right, we got some things wrong, to have that honest conversation with the public. And we've seen it already, for example, in net zero. A couple of months ago, Kemi Badenoch gave a big speech about net zero, her concerns about it, how the targets that had been laid are proving impossible to meet. Lo and behold, it seems now Sir Tony Blair agrees with her, and it's the Labour government that perhaps has lost their way in this argument. But we're trying to absolutely take on board the loud and clear lesson that the public sent us last summer, and as part of that, this is our path to renewal.
Do you think these Tony Blair comments are laying the groundwork for a U-turn from the government?
Well, I'm afraid the political cynic in me wondered if that was the case, but I understand that today the DEFRA Secretary is strongly defending their record, which is extraordinary because, of course, the last month we've all had higher bills across the board and we know the pain that this is causing many, many people. But, if Tony Blair, even Tony Blair doesn't agree with the Labour government, then that is quite a clear message, I would imagine, to them that they have got to rethink this.
Clearly there has been widespread consensus in the general direction of travel over the last couple of decades. And I think Conservative governments led the way on a lot of that. David Cameron, Theresa May, Boris Johnson, maybe less so, a little bit of Rishi Sunak. So if things have gone too far, if Tony Blair is right on this, and I'm not saying that that's for certain in any way, shape or form, but do you take responsibility for that as well?
Look, I think all of us, because there is a consensus across the board, understandably, that we want our environment, our water quality, our air quality, our countryside to be protected and preserved and handed on to future generations in a better state than that which we inherited. But I think we've always been clear that we have to take the public with us on this. And as we see, particularly the measures that this government is bringing in, and I know in my own constituency of Lincolnshire, the huge worry and anger that there is about Ed Miliband's plans for solar panels, carpeting prime agricultural land, for pylons, for wind farms. This is not going with the grain of public opinion. We need to work with people, not set ourselves against them. But of course, I remember the interview that Keir Starmer gave in the election last year, where he said he was happy to make enemies of people who stood in his way on planning, whether it was pylons or housing. And it seems that this Labour government is doing exactly that, even going as far as to alienate their own former Prime Minister.
Planning laws and reforms you support, though?
We do, but what I'm very worried about, actually, and we're seeing this in the planning bill coming up, is that this government is trying to take enhanced powers for local authorities and for Natural England, a giant quango that they don't seem willing to scrap, to seize people's land, whether that is agricultural land or indeed people's gardens for environmental purposes. That is going to be a big battle in the bill to come, because we do not believe that government should be trying to seize people's lands in order to meet these aims of the government, which so many people disagree with.
Victoria Atkins, thanks for joining us. Good to see you this morning.
Thank you.